All right, Frank and Angie of DiscoverCuencaEcuador.com and Discover Ecuador, and today we're talking with a North American expat, and her name is Alice.
Hi, Alice.
Hi, Angie. Hi, Frank. It's so nice to have both of you here in my home. Thank you for coming. And I'll just start in with my story, and you jump in anytime.
Okay.
My story is that my parents were born in Cleveland, Ohio, lived their whole life there. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, lived my whole life there. My husband was born in Cleveland, Ohio, lived his whole life there. I worked from the age of 14 to the retirement age of 66, all in Cleveland, Ohio. My husband of 20 years died at the age of 48 in 1993. Unfortunately, we had no children, so it was me. Even though I worked all my life in Cleveland, Ohio, I sure knew I was not going to retire and spend my time in Cleveland, Ohio. I had grown very tired of spending winters indoors in the forced air heating, spending summers indoors in the air conditioning. When I was young, I enjoyed the four seasons. As I got older, it was just a problem. Maintenance of grass and trees in the yard during the summer, maintenance of snow in the winter, snow plowing. I just got real tired of it and knew I would not be remaining in Cleveland, Ohio. The problem was, where would I go? So I began researching at the age of 60. What would I do? Where would I go? And I did a lot of online research, library research. I bought a lot of books. The unfortunate thing was, every time I read about somewhere in the U.S., such as retire to the Southwest, retire to the Northeast, it sounded wonderful. That's where I'll go. That's where I'll go. Well, I couldn't make up my mind. After 2 years of this, I still didn't know where. So I decided, okay, Alice, you don't need to go anywhere. You can get a fifth-wheel trailer and a pickup truck and travel the United States, seeing all the sights you've never seen. Maybe travel for 5 years or so, get a feel for the country, decide where it is that you want to live. So for about 2 more years, that was my plan. I subscribed to Trailer Life magazine. I went to every RV show. I did the whole gamut, and I was going to get a fifth-wheel trailer when I retired. Well, then the next 2 years were interesting because I started having little nagging doubts way in the back of my head about all kinds of things remaining in the U.S. One of them is that I eat free-range grass-fed meats. I belonged to a herd share program, meaning I was legally entitled to a portion of the products of the herd from an Amish farm in Millersburg, Ohio. I had raw milk. I made my own ice cream, my own yogurt. I knew where I could obtain organic produce, free-range meats. Now, if I were to do my plan of traveling around the country, I couldn't obtain the raw milk because it's illegal. I wouldn't know if I was getting really fresh produce. I wouldn't have access to the free-range grass-fed meats. But more importantly, I was getting very concerned about the United States in general. I'm not going to go into that now as part of this tape, but the more I proceeded with my plan, the more I wanted to leave the United States. I didn't know where I was going to go or what I was going to do, but I thought that I needed to develop a plan B. One of the alternative healthcare newsletters that I subscribed to had a link to click on a website from one of these international organizations. I clicked on it, and the things I was reading kind of hit home. So I thought maybe, just maybe, this might be a good plan B. I didn't know. Well, they happened to have a conference in the United States that I attended, and there were speakers from all over the world. Italy, Spain, Portugal, Mexico, all the Central American countries, all the South American countries. And I left and went back home with lots and lots of literature, thought about it a little more, and decided, okay, this is a viable plan B. Now I had the entire world to consider instead of just the U.S. I was confused with the U.S. Believe me, I didn't even know where to start with the entire world before me. So someone who's in the industry was kind enough to agree to look at my list. I put together a list of requirements, things that I wanted for my retirement, things that were important to me, such as weather, health care, cost of living, ambiance, cultural amenities, etc. And this person suggested, why don't you consider Medellin, Colombia, and Cuenca, Ecuador. So I took 2 weeks of vacation from work in 2012, the last week in January and the first week in February. And the last week in January I went to Medellin, Colombia, and I found that city to be too hot, too humid, too crowded, too populated, too much traffic, too much smog, too much pollution, everything you could think of. It was just too overwhelming. For me, could be perfect for someone else. And I began to get worried. I thought, what am I going to do if I go to Cuenca next and I find out that's not for me either? So the first week in February, I came to Cuenca. And wouldn't you know, I did have a full-time guide, and he showed me all the things I wanted to learn about as a resident, not as a tourist. I wanted to know what kinds of organic produce I could get, where I could get raw milk, where were the health food stores, what kinds of products are sold in grocery stores, what kinds of furnishings could I get for my home. He took me all around and showed me these things. I was with him for 3 days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And then I was on my own. It only took me until Wednesday to know that Cuenca was right for me. Everything about Cuenca that I saw and that I learned was wonderful. I had my plan formulated. I was going to retire at the retirement age of 66, which for me was full Social Security retirement. As I stated, I worked all my life starting at 14. If I gave all of that savings money to the government,
Right.
The government owed me money back. Not as a gift. It was my own money that they would
Exactly.
be returning to me.
Good point.
So I turned 66 in July of 2012, and I retired on August 31st of 2012. And 1 week later, September 7th, I arrived in Cuenca, Ecuador.